Good afternoon. This is Akash Jain, and welcome to my show, NextGen WealthCast. I'm super excited today because I have my very good and very old friend. Oh, very old. I mean, I know him for a long time. Jeff Wallace with me. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I got concerned. I'm not that old, so
We know each other, gosh, for maybe 15 years, Jeff, now.
yeah, I mean closing in, well, we're 2011, 2012 era. So yeah, 13, 14 years.
Hey, we have lived several lives together. We were together at a corporate consulting company, Cognizant. We worked there
Yeah.
together. Then we started a company, which is now a public company, Brillio. We
Yeah.
were the first few. And then we also worked together in an accelerator called Battery. So we have lived some lives together.
We're like a cat. We're about a third way through our 9 lives. So
All right. Hey, no, I'm super excited about bringing you onto the show. As a lot of our audience knows, I invest in a lot of different asset classes. I invest in real estate. I invest in startups. I invest in different kinds of real estate. I invest in obviously stocks, private equity. And what we are trying to do this month is Jeff, we are trying to bring in the flavor of technology and AI and startups into a lot of our conversations.
yeah.
And with that, I was like, hey, who better than yourself, who has wore a number of hats in corporate world as well as the startup world. So to kick us off, why don't you talk to our audience about your background and what you have been investing in and what your investing style is?
Yeah, and it's great to be here. It's always good to catch up. And along, like you said, lots of lives we've lived, and I guess we're into maybe a fourth version of our shared lives as we go down this journey together. So, my background, I'll go very quickly, but I'm originally as I say, Brooklyn-born, Jersey-bred Wall Streeter, who decided after a few years on Wall Street to move out to the West Coast to do my MBA. I thought I would be on the West Coast for 2 years doing that schooling and go back to the life I had in New York, New Jersey. But I moved out here. It's now 35 years. I'm on the West Coast. So I think I may be a West Coaster now. At this point, I spent more years here than I did on the East Coast, but did my MBA, got into management consulting for about just a little shy of 5 years. And then I went entrepreneurial. So from the mid 90s, I was a serial entrepreneur. I had some okay outcomes. I had some not so good outcomes, and I had a couple of good outcomes. So I've kind of spun a wide spectrum of a track record, if you will, but got recruited back out of my startup world to join you and others of our colleagues at Cognizant in 2011 to start and run their mobile division, their enterprise mobility division. So kind of we've come through different journeys together as well through the kind of computing introduction, the internet introduction, the mobile introduction, and here we are in what I would call kind of the fourth major wave of my technology lifetime of AI. And so about 2015, about 10 years, a little over 10 years ago, I decided to just dedicate my focus to the startup ecosystem, get back to the small companies. And with folks like yourself and numerous others of our former partners in the battery, we created an accelerator. We became the mentors, the investors. And I've been on that journey for this entire time. Startups that have gone through our various programming across over 40 countries. Quite a journey in the startup world, and we've gotten to witness and experience a lot. We've gotten to work with some incredibly creative and innovative founders, and my investments kind of track a little bit there. Similar to yourself, I do have like a lot of. I'm a Wall Street guy, so I have my traditional finance, my trad fi kind of investments. I do real estate investing as well, and then startups. Not only startups, other people's startups that I financially support, but I still to this day, I think I'm a glutton for punishment. I still invest and begin new businesses. I've got several new ventures that I'm a co-founder of and investing in as well. So yeah, it's a pretty wide spectrum of investment for me.
Hey, when you look at a startup, obviously, hey, when you're looking at a startup, you're investing your time with mentoring them and whatnot as well. But obviously, you're investing hard dollars as well. And talk to us about what is it that you look for when you're investing hard dollars? When you reach out into your pocket and put real dollars in, what is it? What is it that makes you do that?
Yeah, I doubt my answer is going to surprise someone like yourself who does this as well, but I'm really looking for a couple of few things. First and foremost, I need to really just kind of gel with the founders, and I'm emphasizing the S on the end of that word. Solo founders are difficult businesses for me to invest in, and I have invested in businesses from solo founders with the one caveat was come back when you have a solid co-founder because the business needs to sustain beyond you as an individual, right? As I say, I don't invest in individuals, I invest in teams because that means someone else on the team can kind of grab the baton and run with it if something creates that need. So I do have to really gel with the founders and feel like we're going to have fun. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm not interested in aggravation. Not that I ever was, but I'm definitely more so leaning in towards, am I really going to have fun working with these founders? Do I realistically, and I'm pretty honest with myself, do I feel I can help them move the needle? Now, I've been doing this a long time, so more often than not, I do kind of feel like I can check that box. But there are some situations where I have said to founders, I'm going to bring you better people. And I will go find people who I think can be a better investor, even mentor or advisor sometimes. So fun with founders. Can I really help them move the needle? And do I really believe that they can achieve traction? It's all about the execution side of it. As I like to say, ideas are easy and cheap. Execution is everything and hard. And so I have to believe in the execution capabilities and those other elements that I described to really take money out of my pocket and put it into their business. I have to believe in those few things for sure.
Jeff, I'm assuming a lot of these investments are what are the typical check sizes for these? Are these $5,000 investments or are these $500,000 investments or all over the map?
So I would say I don't do 5 or 10,000. I find that to be a little bit that doesn't move a needle in most startups circumstance. So minimums I would normally do are in the 25. The most I probably would do in any one entity is probably, well, I was about to say a number and then I'm realizing there's one I've done above it. So probably between 25 and 200K.
And then also talk to us a little bit about the stages of startups. Hey, you do a lot of pre-seed, pre-revenue, idea, deckware, and that is a little bit more risky than your Series A, B, C, pre-IPO, whatever. So talk to our investors also about how they should think about the risk and reward investments journey, if you may.
For me personally, I do lean towards the younger companies. I do like the early stage. I feel like I can have the most impact on the forward-looking direction if I can get them early enough. They haven't gotten too caught up in one kind of track that they're on. So I personally lean towards, seed, pre-seed. I would say the vast majority are pre-revenue or maybe just about achieving revenue. Most have some degree of product market fit. At least they believe they've got a product market fit. That's usually challengeable to a certain extent. And I don't say that negatively. I was the exact same kind of founder in my own journey. Like I always thought I had it nailed and until you realize the market doesn't agree with me. So I work with founders in those early stages, but there are some founders I come across that are Series A. So they've kind of gotten through some of those hurdles, those early stage hurdles. I've done some later stage investing. It's not my norm, to be honest. I try to figure out if I can get in early and really help. I often tell founders that I work with personally, I'm a terrible, horrible passive investor. So if you only want to check, I am absolutely the wrong guy. I want to roll my sleeves up and get in and help and operationally be involved to the extent, I'm not trying to overimpose myself, but I do want to be able to come in and help in the ways that I think can really be beneficial to the founders. So, well, oftentimes the later stage folks who, yes, they've de-risked things to a certain point by being later stage. They don't need as much of that earlier stage help that I really enjoy being able to give. And I don't just mean me personally, it's through my network. I'm a connector, if nothing else, maybe even a super connector. And so I want to bring the power of my network to help the founders that I work with. So the later stage they are, the less they kind of lean into that kind of support.
So you're mostly looking at smaller private pre-seed companies. What about some of the work that you do in the Wall Street? Are you looking at the big five there, or the top five, or the FANG, or what? Or is it also diversified, or are you doing it yourself?
Oh, really interesting question, and it's funny because I'd say about maybe 2 years ago, I have a couple different kind of folks that help me with management of investments. And I specifically have split it amongst different brokerage houses and different brokers that I have a relationship with, some for decades, some for a handful of years. But I've done that. And if I followed my own instinct, I'd invest everything in tech. I love tech. I put so much, all my eggs would be in the tech basket. And I know I'm smart enough now to have realized that I can to myself. So I've actually got one of the three people who work with me hedges the other two, and they all have visibility to all of it. And I get on calls with all of them sometimes. And they've been very warm and accepting of doing that, knowing that, hey, I wish I had all of it, but they recognize the strategy. And so I actually have one of them particularly investing in things that are in the antithesis of where my instincts would be for investing. So for example, I have one that's probably 50, 60% fixed income and international. And the other two, which I work with, are generally more in my wheelhouse of the Fortune, the FANG on the NASDAQ side, the big tech. I have holdings in almost any of the bigger tech companies. Even looking at trends in AI, I look at things like data centers are going to become a more thing. So I put a lot of investment focus now into the data center and the support for data centers, kind of like, the picks and shovels kind of people, right? So I've looked at diversifying, and I forced my own self through the support network that I'm describing to you to be much more diversified than I would instinctively do on my own.
Very cool. So again, the diversification, guys, is the name of the game. Interesting question here. Hey, where do you like living the most? I know you've lived all around the world, East Coast, West Coast, New Zealand, as well as your consulting journeys have taken you everywhere.
Yes.
What is the best place that you like to live on for a longer periods of time?
It's a great question. I've traveled to over 50 plus countries in my kind of journeys, and I love experiencing new places. I haven't lived in many of them. I've lived in Mexico for several years. I've lived in the US the vast majority of almost the entirety of my life. But about a year and a half ago, I decided to explore new thoughts and new journeys, and New Zealand is where I do live. And I live about half time currently in New Zealand, in Queenstown, specifically on the South Island, and half time in the Bay Area. And I have to say, I probably have the best of both worlds right now, because I get my Bay Area, my kind of Silicon Valley tech fill being up here. But the beauty of New Zealand is it's a very, very beautiful country, very warm people. It's been very enjoyable living there. It's so peaceful and scenic and everything. There's no negative adjective I would put there. And at the same time, it's only between 3 or 5 hours earlier than the Pacific time zone. So I really can maintain my West Coast of the US lifestyle, even living in a place, halfway around the world like New Zealand, because what I looked for was a place that was peaceful. English was at least well-spoken and Pacific time zone friendly. So Europe got chopped pretty quickly with that West Coast friendly side. And when you say those criteria, kind of English speaking and Pacific friendly, you kind of pretty quickly get to like Canada, Mexico, or something in Central America, maybe, or New Zealand. And New Zealand was the place my partner and I chose, and absolutely love it.
Hey, I've been to New Zealand once and I love the country.
Yeah,
And hey, definitely, hey, for us English speakers, it's one of those places that, hey, we feel warm and welcomed. So,
absolutely. And make it a second time. Come visit.
hey, I'll take you up on it. All right, great. Another question that, hey, folks, you might not know about this about Jeff, but Jeff, through his entrepreneurial stints, have met a few famous people. Jeff, talk to us a little bit about some of the famous people that you have rubbed shoulders with.
It's been kind of an amazing journey. I find it humbling that this is part of my journey, but I think it's a little bit of me, a little bit of serendipity, and a little bit of just where I am. But I've gotten to meet many incredible industry people, either business and or the tech world. But I've gotten to work very closely with a couple as well, including Steve Jobs back in the late 90s with one of my startups. We partnered with Apple through me being able to get a meeting with Steve Jobs. My company worked with Apple. It was an educational software platform back in the late 90s. So I'm going back quite a ways. Later on, right after I left our shared journey at Cognizant, in fact, I got invited to be a keynote speaker at a mobile company's event in Central America. And they said it would be you and two other speakers. And this was like my first paid speaking gig, because everything else I'd done on behalf of our employer prior to that. And so I got invited, and the other two speakers, who I have subsequently done other stuff with and maintain a relationship with, were Steve Wozniak The other Steve, as I say, of Apple. Steve and I have done a couple events together. And Yuri Levine, whose name may not be as familiar, but Yuri was the creator or co-founder of Waze. And Yuri and I have done numerous events together. In fact, we were just together last year in Azerbaijan, of all places. We kind of hit some off the beaten track places. We were together at an event in Baku, Azerbaijan, and had a chance to have dinner one of the nights and spend a couple hours just catching up. And he's an amazing entrepreneur. He's on his midway through his third unicorn. He's just like someone I absolutely am inspired by and admire what he's done in tech industry and just in business in general. And he's one of the like warmest, just great guys. So such a nice person. And Wozniak, as I said, I've gotten to meet other folks in industry as well. Business side, Wall Street, there's one of my very first bosses and mentors to this day in some ways. Is a gentleman by the name of Joe Moglia. He became the CEO and chairman of Ameritrade and then exited it to Schwab in fairly recent years. So I still am in touch with Joe. He's an amazing person. In fact, there's a movie, I think, being made about his journey. He's had an incredible journey. And so just to be able to know I have people like that I have been able to cross paths with and have access to is kind of an amazing part of the journey. So yeah, very humbling to meet people like that.
Very humbling for me as well. Now I know that I am 2 degrees separated from Steve and Steve.
You are indeed. You definitely are.
Very cool, sir. Very, very cool. So Jeff, also talk to us a little bit about, hey, you've been to 50 countries. You've invested or worked with for more than 4,000 startups. Now, these startups, from what I understand, are global. When you think about investing, where are you putting your money in? Is it mostly US-based companies or is it all around the world?
Great question. Really good question, because that comes up a lot from the founders who we run programs with in other countries is, would you invest in our company? And the reality is I am more rare versus many of the other angels that I know in my network, people who I know who do angel investing. I have invested offshore, which is not the norm. It's kind of a rarity. And the way I often answer the question from founders in, fill in the blank country other than the US, any outside the US country, when they say, would you invest here? Or do you have investors who would invest here? The reality is I ask them a question. I say, how familiar are you with US investment law? And they say, well, I'm not very familiar with it. And I say, and that's how familiar American investors are with your country's law. So the likelihood and the comfort that they have is pretty low. So what we typically recommend is if you want to raise capital and you want to do something in the US market at some future point, if not currently, create your US, normally you would say Delaware C. I know some people are moving that now, thinking about Nevada, but basically form your US C Corp, not an LLC, not another. You can maybe get away with an S Corp, but don't do an LLC. Form your C Corp in most places, I would say Delaware, and then you can start to raise capital, get your US bank. The investments that I've made, a lot of those companies tend to be when they form their US entity.
That's great advice. And guys, hey, obviously, myself and Jeff, we are not lawyers and accountants, right? So, hey, consult the lawyers and accountants before jumping on to form your C corporations, right? Now, Jeff, another question around, hey, as you look at your investments, how does real estate play into your portfolio?
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have played much of my portfolio other than for the fact that I actually was a real estate developer in one phase of my own entrepreneurial journey. I had a luxury beach resort with 3 partners. We bought 15 acres of oceanfront property in Mexico and built a very luxurious, at the time, it was the highest end. It did well. The business was a good business. And when I came back north of the border, if you will, came back into the States and was trying to get back into my passion area of tech and marketing and strategy, those areas more so than real estate, which was more of when the dot-com market imploded in 99, 2000, I had to shut my then tech company, and I ended up fortuitously or opportunistically in this real estate development business down in Mexico. But when I came back, I felt, I like this idea of real estate. And so I started investing in real estate. I started doing some building homes in various cities around the country. I wasn't even doing it in my backyard here in California. And then I decided in 2008, when that market imploded, I decided, let me just do more, kind of be a minority investor in other real estate ventures. So I do have a small share, a minority share in several buildings in the Bay Area. These are like apartment buildings, more income generating buildings. We have property managers, so I don't get involved in any of the kind of day to day. In those areas, I'm a good passive investor. In startups, I'm a terrible passive investor. But in my real estate investments, those are mostly at this stage passive.
Hey, that shows the breadth of your investing, Jeff. Again, hey, well, obviously the Wall Street, the startups all across the globe, the real estate. I think that's a welcome mix for a lot of our viewers and listeners. One other question, Jeff, you seem to have the crystal ball because, hey, I have for the last 15 years that I've known you, you're always at the forefront of the next wave. I've now, when we were together at Cognizant, you were talking about mobile and you were giving keynote speeches about mobile. And then most lately, you have been very, very closely aligned with a lot of the AI startups. With your crystal ball, talk to us about this whole AI wave and how should investors be thinking about it? What's next? What's coming up? Talk to us about the artificial intelligence.
I wish I had as good a crystal ball as you're making it seem I have, but I do tend to be an emerging tech person. I'm an early adopter, right? So I lean into emerging tech very heavily, and so I'm deep in the, I'm up over my head. I'm in deep water in the AI world. I'm swimming in the AI tools and technologies. I think it's impossible to keep up with it. So I would never endeavor to say I'm keeping up with what's happening in AI, but I'm doing my best possible job to keep up with as much as I'm able to. Where, one of the reasons we transitioned, as you know, the battery from a more general acceleration program to an AI acceleration program. We're focusing a lot on helping founders really sort through the hype, if you will, not get caught up on the next pretty butterfly of a new model or something like, but really figure out how to create a foundation for leveraging artificial intelligence into their business. Now, of course, planning cycles are a different thing in today's tech world than they have been in the past. I think I have heard on a few occasions people say the planning cycle today in the AI realm is about 6 weeks. That's about as far out as you can see, and then it gets murky because we don't know what's coming up. But that's such an intensely difficult thing to plan for. So we try to help companies really figure out foundationally what are they trying to do and how can AI be built in to be leveraged and also be flexible enough to know that there will be something new emerging. And so that's a challenge. That's certainly a challenge, but we have some really good mentors in the program, as we always have within the battery, who can help support and bring kind of that edge of the frontier, knowledge. Like we've got people on the technical side of AI. We have people on the ethical and responsible side of AI who are helping at that level. So it's been fascinating for me. I personally lean into a lot of the AI tools, a lot of the workflow automation tools that I'm fascinated by. There's not enough YouTube videos that I can watch on some of these topics because I just run halfway through the video. I pause, I run to my computer and I go, I got to try this. And then I'm deep into the rabbit holes. So, but that's the goal is I test a lot of stuff. I actually do a fair bit of workshops with founders wherever I may be in the globe. I often am running workshops on, I'll call it more of a show and tell, where I just literally put my screen on a big screen and I say, let's walk through a few scenarios and use cases how I'm deploying these tools to improve my own productivity. And I would say my productivity is high double digits improved from what it was just maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago before these tools emerged. So that's what we try to work with founders on, is helping them incorporate these into their lifestyle. As our belief is, the toothpaste is out of the tube. There's no company that will remain unimpacted by AI. You've got to figure out how you're going to address AI in your business. I don't care what business you're in either, to be honest.
Very cool, sir. Hey, as we wrap up the segment here, one question that, there is a lot of investors who are afraid of tech, who are afraid of startups. Hey, what advice do you have for them to take that leap, take that next leap? And, hey, a lot of our investors are doing a lot of real estate, right? Real estate is great.
Sure.
But if you want
Very
to create
tangible.
the generational wealth, that delta, some of that has to come from the 100Xs. Yes, obviously there is a lot of failure. There's a lot of busts. But, hey, you got to catch one of those 100Xs to make it happen. And there's a lot of our investors who keep sitting on the sidelines, and then they think at the end, hey, I should have invested in that when I had the opportunity to. So what
You
is your
know,
advice to those people?
yeah, Akash, it's really a great point, and we've touched in this conversation on a few things that I'm gonna bring back to the answer. Portfolio diversification. Think about startups as an asset class and allocate a comfortable number. Maybe it's 5% of your investable funds, but my sense is you don't want to miss the boat. And you may not want to put too much risk in that boat of startups, which I fully would agree with. But I don't think you should miss the boat entirely because none of us know what the next, Uber, Apple, Nvidia, like fill in the blank. None of us know what the next one's going to be. But if you follow people who have some experience in the ecosystem, follow gut instinct. Do I think it can go somewhere? Do I think I can help? Do I think these founders have what it takes? But I would just say portfolio diversification. Put a comfortable and probably a nominal amount of your investable funds into it. If you think of it as, oh, that's just startups, I'm going to go invest in these other asset classes like Wall Street and real estate, et cetera, then I think you're missing the idea. Startups to me are in and of themselves an asset class. In fact, I gave a presentation to a group of family offices on considering startups as its own unique asset class. I actually did that presentation where I positioned startups investments as an asset class to be considered for a diversified portfolio. So that would really be my answer here is I think anyone listening to your podcast here, knowing that it's around investments and creating multi-generational wealth and diversified multiple asset class investments.
Amazing answer there, Jeff. And hey, I have enjoyed our conversation so much. It brings back a lot of memories. It brings back a lot of those late night that we spent together working on
Indeed.
mobile and consulting gigs and so on and so forth. All right. No, hey, so thank you so much for being a guest on my show. I
Absolutely.
appreciate all the candor and all the advice that you have for investors. But thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Akash. It is very fun and